Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about A Simple Favor.
And it's an especially exciting episode because we have a guest. Cam from What I Will Say is here. Hi, Cam.
Hi, guys. So glad to be here.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about What I Will Say and where they can find you?
Absolutely. So I host the What I Will Say podcast. It is a queer pop culture podcast where we review pop culture conspiracy theories, and we view those topics through the lens of Taylor Swift a lot of the time. We're not all Taylor all the time, but if you're interested in Taylor, that's a great jumping off point for our podcast.
Which I know a lot of you guys are. I love Cam's podcast. It's one of my comfort listens.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love it. So you guys will like it. You'll have to check her out.
Please do.
Okay, so the logline for this movie is Stephanie is a widowed single mother who works as a vlogger in Connecticut. Her best friend Emily seems to have it all. A successful career, a loving family, and a glamorous lifestyle. When Emily mysteriously disappears one day, Stephanie launches her own investigation by digging into her friend's past and finding a few surprises along the way. I love this movie. It is the perfect, cute, lighthearted watch, but also it's creepy and a mystery, and I love mysteries. What do you guys think of it?
I think it's a fantastic movie. I loved it from the second I saw it. I chose that we cover this one because there is that queer element to it, which just I feel like brings a lot of texture to a movie, brings a little it factor, a little, ooh, there's a little zest to this. Mm-hmm. There's some other zesty things in this movie that I guess we'll get into. But I think it's a goofy, fun romp. It does not take itself too seriously, and it's an easy watch.
I'm so glad you chose this movie because I had never seen it. I think Megan had been telling me that I needed to watch it for a long time, but it was on my list and I just wasn't getting to it fast enough. So thank you so much for choosing it because I really, really enjoyed it. I had a really good time.
It has our two girls in it.
I know.
No, wait.
Anna, we love them.
Okay, so how are these, Blake and Anna, how are these your two girls?
We talked about both of them. We covered Pitch Perfect. We talked about Anna Kendrick. I feel like we both love her. And Blake Lively, I feel like we've talked about probably in passing a few times because we bring up Taylor Swift constantly. But we talked about her specifically in the Sister to the Traveling Pants episode we did.
Can I tell you guys a secret?
Yes, of course.
The reason my podcast, the What I Will Say podcast, exists is because in a fit of pandemic madness and some other things I was going through on my mental health journey, as we say on the pod, the only reason it exists is because I wrote 50,000 words of Pitch Perfect fan fiction. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Through that, found the Glee fandom. Through that, found Diana Agron. Through that, found all the kooky conspiracy theories about Diana Agron and Lea Michele and Taylor Swift and all of that. So, the only reason we are here today is because of Anna Kendrick, really.
Incredible.
So thank you to her.
Love that.
I love everything about that.
Yeah.
It was the fanfic, Anna Kendrick's character, and...
Oh, it was Chloe.
Chloe, yeah.
It was absolutely Chloe. And it was smutty.
Amazing. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
This movie came out in 2018. It was based on a 2017 novel with the same name by Darcy Bell. So I guess it was made right away.
That's a quick turnaround, I feel like. Boom, movie deal.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Right, and I've never heard of it. Have you guys?
No.
The book?
I didn't know it was a book first. I guess because the movie came out so quickly, I feel like it didn't have time to, ramp up a book fandom first.
Kind of got overshadowed by the popularity of the movie.
Yeah, and I guess that happens sometimes, though, where, something will be kind of optioned at the exact same time that the book is coming out. So I don't know Darcy Bell, but good for them. And this movie was directed by Paul Feig. He's the creator of Freaks and Geeks and the executive producer of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which I love, Minx, and a bunch more. And I thought this was kind of interesting because Linda Cardellini is in this movie, and she was in Freaks and Geeks. It helped launch her career, and so it's kind of great that she got to work with him again.
Cool. I feel like Cam said, the reason we want to talk about this movie, and I feel like what makes it a lot more interesting than I think your typical mystery, is Emily and Stephanie's relationship. And I was reading an article where Anna Kendrick got asked about the two characters and their relationship and where she thinks they would fall on the Kinsey scale. And she said, quote, "That's a good question. I think Emily is a surprise for Stephanie, and she is completely in love with her in a way she can't totally understand. I do think that Stephanie probably would define herself as straight, except that there is this woman and she really is kind of in love with her, and there's a part of her that is attracted to her."
Yeah, I think an interesting thing we get into in this movie is this concept of the triangulation of desire. So for me as a queer woman, this idea that Stephanie, Anna's character, is drawn to Emily, Blake's character, and we find out they even share a kiss. and there's an attraction there, but then Emily's husband sort of ends up having a connection with Stephanie. And so there's this idea in the queer community, and it's just a concept of the triangulation of desire, where in my lived experience as a queer woman, when I was in like middle school, high school, I had this girl that I had a thing with. I wasn't really out to myself yet, didn't really know what was going on. I just knew I liked to kiss her. And she had this boyfriend. And then all of a sudden they weren't boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. And then he became my boyfriend. And it was really, we had feelings for each other, but we were sort of transposing our feelings onto the same guy. And while Anna seems to say like, oh, Stephanie would probably define herself as straight, but she's kind of in love with her. I think some of the content between Stephanie and Emily's husband really has to do with Stephanie's attraction to Emily. That's just my take on it.
I love that.
I think that's totally right. For me watching it, it was giving like a, does she want to be her? Does she want to be with her? But then she kind of becomes her in the process of figuring it out. And I think we run into that a lot. We talked about it like in our Jennifer's Body episode. I think it's kind of like a similar situation. But I think it happens a lot in these early 2000s movies that we talk about a lot, where there aren't necessarily like, this is like probably not the right way to say it, but like canon queer characters where like they're like self-identifying in the movies, but everything is there.
Yeah. It's very much a Gold Rush situation, the Taylor Swift song Gold Rush, where she has this attraction to someone who's so beautiful with long, beautiful hair. And what's it like to grow up that beautiful? And the attraction is so strong, there's almost a resentment that it's like, do I want to be you or be with you? That is fucking Blake Lively, right? Not to start any fucking Blayler conspiracy theories. We're not going there. I refuse to go there, right? But Blake Lively, looks-wise, perfect fit for this role. It's just this all-consuming, this gorgeous creature that's almost too beautiful for her own good, even.
And I feel like all of her characters are this, right? Because she just is that girl.
Yeah,
I think we all feel that way about her. Like, do we want to be her? Yeah, she was perfect for this role. I also think Anna Kendrick was perfect for her role, too. She has that kind of, like, awkward funniness. She was very much like her Pitch Perfect character, but
a little less cool.
Buttoned up, yes.
Yeah. I had fun when I was doing this. I've seen this movie several times, obviously rewatched it for the pod. It's a little fun just to be like, you know what? This is just Serena van der Woodsen grown up, and this is just Becca Mitchell grown up, and this is where their lives have taken them. And it's sort of like, yeah, if Becca Mitchell like went through the traumatic loss of like a brother and a husband, like Stephanie's character does, I could see her buttoning up and just putting the music aside, and just like buttoning up a little and just focusing on being a mom. Maybe.
Wait, Cam, that's your next fanfic. That's your next idea.
It's literally Pitch Perfect, Gossip Girl crossover. And yeah, Serena van der Woodsen, she's tearing up New York City. Then all of a sudden, right?
I'll be your biggest fan. Okay. Sounds great.
All right. Well, I'll get working on that.
Okay.
Perfect.
Keep us posted.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we dive into it a little more and talk about Blake Lively?
Well, I wanted to get, speaking of Blake Lively, I wanted to get y'all's take on something. So when I was rewatching the movie this last time, and I really loved the movie. Like, I don't have any strong, like, notes for it. I do think maybe the weakest part of the performance is Blake Lively's performance. Now, looks-wise, and on some of the beats, she's perfect. So, like, I'm not saying, like, cast someone else, but I do feel like there's this rumor that on set, everybody knew it was kind of a goofy, rompy, satirical almost movie, except, like, Blake Lively thought it was, like, a serious movie. Like, that's the rumor that sort of goes around the gossip sphere, that Blake Lively is on set, like, thinking this is, like, Oscar bait, like, a serious performance, like a
high drama.
And I feel like you can see that in some of her acting. And I'm a fan of Blake. I think she's a great bestie to Taylor Swift. I love Gossip Girl, but like I feel like her acting is maybe not her strongest asset, which is okay. She doesn't owe the world being like a Meryl Streep or anything. No one does, But sometimes you could tell she was taking herself so seriously in the role. Like the scene where she gets her picture taken and she's like, don't fucking do that, and it's like really high drama. And I'm just wondering, like, did you guys get that feeling at all from Blake? Like, do we think she could have like handed in a slightly more toned down and like thoughtful performance, or what is y'all's take on that?
I'm glad you said that because I couldn't pinpoint it, but I felt like there were some lines where Blake was trying to be intense, or her character was trying to be intense, and some of the more intense lines that she was giving, I didn't buy them. Yeah. It was like hard to believe, Yeah. And it like cringed me out a little bit. So yeah, I could see that.
Just a little bit. Just a little. Still a fan.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Have you seen Gone Girl?
Yes.
She was giving Gone Girl the whole time. And so I actually think I found a hard time placing what genre this was because it wasn't that funny to me. It was pretty serious. And so like the camp was kind of lost on me a little bit because I was thinking of Gone Girl the whole time.
Yeah. I feel like the performance in Gone Girl, Rosamund Pike to me is what Blake was trying to reach.
Yeah.
And maybe it just didn't match like the context of the movie as perfectly. Because I love Gone Girl. And I like that you bring that up. I've never even made that connection. But she does a Gone Girl. Like that's literally the plot of the movie, right? So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm seeing it in kind of a different light now.
Yeah, I think for me, I was just expecting this movie to end with them. Is this too early to say? I don't know. But like to end with them shooting the husband and leaving together. That was kind of what I was thinking the entire time. And so it was really interesting watching it for the first time and not anticipating what was coming next at all. So maybe as we go through the movie, I'll talk about what I anticipated was going to happen based on probably thinking that it was a lot like Gone Girl. So you all know Blake Lively. She's in Gossip Girl, Age of Adeline, The Shallows, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, which I feel like her character Bridget in that is so similar to this character too.
Yeah.
But like the grown-up New York version of her. She's in a very famous relationship. She married Ryan Reynolds in 2012 and they have 4 kids. Their names are James, Inez, and Betty. And no one knows the name of the youngest, but I am sure that we will find out the name in a Taylor Swift song.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Hey guys, jumping in after we recorded to say that baby Reynolds has been announced. He is a boy and his name is Olin. So congrats to Blake and Ryan. Ryan actually just announced his name, Olin, at the Deadpool premiere. He was thanking all of his kids and included Olin's name. And then a couple short days later, he announced that Olin is in fact a little boy while speaking with one of the AFC Wrexham fans. That's the soccer club in Europe that he owns. So yeah, very excited for them. I'm very excited to know a little bit more about Blake and Ryan's family. I loved seeing all of the footage of her taking her kids to the Taylor Swift tour. Although Jenny I can't remember if we talked about this in the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants episode, but weren't you saying that people on TikTok were actually being good people and telling people to take videos of their kids down?
Yes, which I loved because they are so private with their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one thing I definitely think they get right. Like I like to see a celeb that maybe shares a touch, but not too much because, the consent issue of do you want your face plastered everywhere and that sort of thing as a child.
Totally.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, should we talk about Anna Kendrick?
Let's get into it.
Please.
She's from Pitch Perfect, Trolls, Twilight, The Accountant. I always forget that she is in Twilight.
I do too.
Such an important role. I feel like actually there should have been a relationship between Anna Kendrick's character in Twilight. What is Jessica and Bella? Like that was there.
I can't believe you just knew her character name.
Oh yeah, wait, are we not all huge Twilight fans here? Is that just
I totally
No,
forgot.
I was. Huge. I just I forget that she's even in this.
Yeah.
So she comes from a musical theater background, to the surprise of, I assume, no one. And she was actually the second youngest person ever nominated for a Tony, which I think is very cool and totally tracks. I think even when she's doing more, quote, serious roles, I feel like you can feel the theater energy on her, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about this a little bit in the Pitch Perfect episode, but she has also been in some famous relationships, and she was in a very toxic 6-year-long relationship with supposedly British cinematographer Ben Richardson, is who people think this is. And she's talked about it more openly recently, and she says that it's basically like they were married and they even had embryos together, but she alludes to him having some sort of psychotic break and then becoming, in her words, emotionally and psychologically abusive. Mm-hmm. And so if you're interested in that, I know she talks about it in the Armchair Expert episode that she did, and she just speaks about it very eloquently, and it was nice to hear about her journey.
That's sad though.
It's very sad. I think you see it a lot though, and it's funny. I think some of the other Pitch Perfect girls, Anna Camp, who plays Aubrey in Pitch Perfect, she has also come out about being in an abusive marriage, and she's been married a couple times, so you don't necessarily know which husband, but it's just okay, how many? And then I think even Brittany Snow has as well, and it's just man, it's just rampant, isn't it? It's just still such an issue. It's great that Anna shared about that and brought some awareness to it.
Totally.
But sorry it happened, for sure.
I know. She also famously dated Bill Hader, which I love. I think they're such a funny pair together.
Yeah. I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
I can simultaneously picture it and not picture it.
Yeah. I don't think they did it for that long, though. So I don't think it was anything that serious. And then leading up to the A Simple Favor premiere, she did an interview where they asked, it's the same interview they were asking about her and Blake's character's relationship. They asked about her own sexuality. And she mentions like having a relationship similar to Emily and Stephanie's in high school, where she had a friend and they kissed. And like she mentions, I think, that it wasn't like performative, like sometimes you do, at parties and stuff when you're young and growing up. She was like, no, this one was for real. But then she had a quote where she said, I think I haven't had that emotional love for a lady, which isn't saying it could never happen to me, but I think I'm more of an Emily than a Stephanie.
She's also referred to herself as a straight cis boring face McGee when asked about being kind of a gay icon due to sort of Pitch Perfect and then movies like this as well. I think that quote was before this movie. So like I think Anna, like I think she has that energy of like, listen, this is proof that it's not a choice, your sexuality, because if I could go there I would, because I think she sees, she sees the beauty in it and she loves the queer community and she's involved in the queer community, but right now on her journey, she sees herself as more straight, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I love that. And then we have Henry Golding, who plays Sean.
A beautiful man.
Oh, so beautiful.
Beautiful man. We talked about him a little bit in Crazy Rich Asians, but he's English Malaysian. His family actually moved to England from Malaysia when he was 8, and then he moved back to Kuala Lumpur when he was 21 to host a travel show. And I think that was all he did before he moved to the US and then did Crazy Rich Asians and this movie in the same year.
Good for him. What a year. That's crazy.
And wasn't he just picked for Crazy Rich Asians? Like
I think
from
so.
his travel show, they were like, he is the one. He's
and
Nick.
his social media, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he's beautiful. I
That's
understand.
is that like maybe a little pretty privilege? Not saying he's
It
not
is.
talented,
It is.
but like
100%.
he is one of the most beautiful men on planet Earth. So like that maybe plays into it some.
In Crazy Rich Asians, he was coached to basically stop overacting and just play himself. So it makes sense.
I think Blake Lively might need that note sometimes because she's kind of the same deal.
It's like so actually interesting now that I'm thinking about it with Blake, because she comes across in real life, I just imagine her to be so cool girl, like so like above it all, like doesn't really care.
Right. But then her acting is almost so earnest.
Yes. Yeah, she's like really trying. And I love her for that.
Yeah.
Love her for that. She does a great job, but like you can tell she's putting in so much effort. Interesting.
That is interesting. Back to Henry Golding. He married a yoga teacher, model, and TV host named Liv Lowe, and they met in 2010, got married in 2016. They're still married as far as I know, and they have 2 kids.
Love it.
Love to see a long-lasting relationship in Hollywood because you don't see that much. And that he took off, a couple years ago, and they're still together. I feel like you just do not see that as much. So
No.
good for him.
It's not like the Jeremy Allen White situation where it's like he gets famous and then...
Barry Keoghan,
Yes.
Ariana's guy, SpongeBob, all of that. It's
The
like,
list.
no, he's sticking with his girl. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For now.
For now.
We can't be too optimistic about men in Hollywood.
No. Okay, should we get into the movie?
Let's do it.
The movie opens to Stephanie, Anna Kendrick's YouTube channel, and she's baking zucchini cookies, and she tells her audience that her best friend Emily is missing. She says, Emily asked me for a simple favor, to pick up her son Nicky from school, which was 5 days ago, and she hasn't come back yet. She says she's doing everything she can to help the police track Emily down, but she's realizing she doesn't know Emily as well as she thought she did. And then she starts telling the story of how they met a few weeks ago at their son's school. And this is where I was like, hold up. They've only known each other for a few weeks. And she's like, this is my best friend. And she's gone missing.
Lesbian behavior. They're U-hauled their friendship, okay?
Yeah.
My notes are just queer clues. Who's acting gayer,
The tone is set immediately in this movie for me because we're getting this like, I don't even know how to describe Anna Kendrick's just vibe in this movie. Like it's not that it's cringe. It's just like she's giving like such try hard mommy blogger, combined with like she's talking about her missing friend, and they like do a really good job, I think, of editing it and making it feel creepy and like building the suspense from the very first scene. And I think that's what makes it funny to me is the disconnect between those two things.
Totally.
So in the flashback where they're talking about when they first met, we see their 2 sons, Nicky and Miles, playing at school while Stephanie is like running around the classroom taking pictures of everybody. And the other parents, while she's doing this, are talking under their breath about Stephanie. And the teacher even makes a comment asking Stephanie to not sign up for too many classroom jobs. And then Stephanie offers to bring in her balloons and her helium tank for one of the jobs. And one of the other moms says, please tell me you don't actually own a helium tank, Stephanie. And Stephanie says, lots of people own helium tanks, Stacy, because kids love balloons. And And we also find out in this conversation that Emily has a really cool PR job, and so she's never around at school. She's like not like the other parents. You can tell she's very viewed by them as different.
I also love that she just shamed the moms right back who were shaming her.
Well, she does this thing where, and I see lots of awkward people do this, that are like, they're socially there. They get the idea of a sarcastic joke, but they haven't gotten to like the nailing the delivery. I'm thinking of one person in my life in particular, but it's just like, there's this idea of, well, you bad mom. She's like, lots of kids love balloons. What, you don't have a balloon tank? You bad mom. And then she very quickly, instead of like letting it land and breathe for a sec, she very quickly says, I'm just kidding. And so it's like, she like knows the concept of like a sarcastic joke, but she doesn't know how to like make them land yet. Because there's nothing that like takes the air out of one of those jokes than to very be clear, I don't mean it. And it's like, we know you don't mean it, you know? But
right.
it's endearing in this film, especially Anna Kendrick's so likable. A lot of the cringy stuff she does, you can feel that it's meant to be cringy, it's meant to be awkward, but it's a little endearing because it's Anna. You know, we love Anna Kendrick, so.
Yes.
Yeah, she does it really well.
After school, Emily comes to pick up Nikki, and she is iconic. And it's raining, right? And she gets out of her car with this umbrella, and it's like a fashion model shoot. They shot this so beautifully. She's wearing a black suit and a black hat and heels. We can tell she's the exact opposite of Stephanie. Nikki asks his mom if he and Miles can have a play date, and she says, oh no, mommy already has a play date with a symphony of antidepressants. While the kids whine, Emily actually looks at Stephanie for the first time. She checks her out. Let's just say it. She checks her out. She tells her to come over for a drink. As they walk off, the other parents say Emily is going to eat Stephanie alive.
She was so iconic in this.
Yes, and there's that great line where she like, and actually I think this is one of Blake's best scenes in the movie. There's this great line where she's like, well, I'm going to go have a drink. Like, if the kids want to play, do you want to come and like, you can give me backup. We'll have a drink together. And Stephanie's like, what, me? Really? You know, because she's so in awe of her beauty. And Emily goes, oh, maybe your kid, does he want a drink too? So that line I love. It's just this funny, sarcastic moment. And it's like, oh, she can let the sarcastic joke land. You know, she doesn't correct herself. She's just like, oh, maybe your kid wants to drink. You know, it's never too early to start them. You know, get them learning how to drink. And, you know, then Stephanie scurries along after her. And it's this great, Blake is pretty great in this scene, I will say. And she looks insane.
This might be her coolest moment.
Yeah, the rain coming down, getting out of the car. It's like Victoria's Secret. Like, it's intense. I love it.
Absolutely. Also, at one point, I think she like casually mentions her labia to her kid.
Okay, I Googled because she's like, the kid, Miles, he goes, you never let me have any fun. And she goes, really? I let you have fun. I let you tear my labia as you exited my body. And I'm like, does the labia ever tear? I feel like it's more of the like the actual hole, you know? And I'm like, well, a man wrote this movie, you know what I'm saying? Like, or directed it. Yeah. So I Googled it. Apparently they can tear. So it, you know, there you go. I checked for the pod, just so you guys know.
Anatomy check.
Anatomy check. Absolutely. I looked it up. Apparently anything could be damaged down there, which I guess does make sense.
Perfect.
I read that Blake Lively wanted Emily to wear suits to distinguish this character from her other character, Serena Vanderwoodson, on Gossip Girl. And that makes sense because both of them are very fashionable characters and they live on the Upper East Side. And I feel like you could get them kind of confused. Like maybe Emily is like a more grown-up version of Serena.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I also think that these suits that Blake wears in this movie are what inspired the dance parade scene from the Me music video. Like I think Taylor might have even said something like that, but if you go watch, you can tell like, oh, girlie's been watching her friends' movies for sure.
And that was right after this, right?
Yeah, I would say this movie came out and maybe less than a year later, the Me music video came out.
Interesting.
And Taylor posted to Instagram about going to see the movie and being obsessed with it. So
nice. So when they get to Emily's house, Stephanie comments on the naked portrait of Emily on the wall, and Emily asks if she likes it, and Stephanie is just so awkward here and compliments her house to change the subject. And Emily says, thanks, it's a fucking money pit. And Stephanie says, oopsie. And then we find out that at their house, they have an oopsie jar for when someone says a bad word. And Stephanie apologizes for her habit of saying oopsie, but Emily tells her to never apologize for anything ever because it's a fucked up female habit. The girls talk, and Emily tells Stephanie that her husband is the one who does all the cooking, although she thinks it's just an excuse not to write. He wrote a famous book 10 years ago, and Stephanie happens to have read it when she first became a single mom.
Fun fact about the portrait of Blake. It was apparently Blake's idea to like have that in the house, and it was never actually there on set. It was just a green screen, and then they put it in after.
Why did she want that? Did she not want the kids to have to look at it, or did she just think maybe the movie should be finished and you see the vibe of the movie and then you can know the vibe of the portrait?
I don't know. It was her idea to have the portrait in the first place. I don't know if it was her idea to green screen it.
I love the portrait. It's very bush forward, pubes forward, which I think is like bold. I like that, you know?
It fits with her character and the vibe of the house. So I think it was actually a great move because it's just another way for when Stephanie walks in for her to be like, ooh.
Right.
Yeah. You know?
Right.
While they're talking, Stephanie mentions that she's actually a widow and that her husband and brother both died in a car accident together. I believe it's here that we see the first, like, sort of flash to that car crash. And the car crashes into this, like, big concrete wall. And it looks, you guys can tell me, maybe Jenny, this would be good to like know your thoughts since you watched this for the first time. It looks intentional immediately that they ran into this wall.
I didn't catch that.
Okay. I feel like the like backstory behind it comes in later, so we can like deep dive it.
I will say on second watch, it looked intentional to me. On further subsequent watches, I don't remember my first thought on it though.
Yeah. And then Emily makes some martinis and asks Stephanie if she's dating anyone, but Stephanie says no. And Emily's like, come on, baby, you're too sexy to give up. The overtness of this of like, since they met through now, I don't know if I ever fully picked up on how much Emily is hitting on Stephanie.
Yeah, she calls her baby like 5 times in this scene, and she calls her sexy, and she just compliments her. And the way, it's funny because I'm like, why is she trying to seduce her? Because we kind of find out, right? We kind of find out that Emily is a bit of a Looney Tunes, right? She's a bit like of a manipulator. Maybe she's on a different mental health journey. You know, she seems to want people to desire her. So is she even saying this because she believes it? Because we all see Stephanie. Now we know Anna Kendrick can like, you know, slap on some lipstick and some heels and like look great in an award show or something. She's like a sexy person, I think, and her talent and her humor is very sexy. But like Stephanie, I do not see as sexy. So the fact that Emily is like, come on, baby, oh, baby girl, like, oh, you're sexy, don't give up, you've got to get out there, your body deserves sex, like saying all this kind of stuff. It's like, at first it just seems like, oh, damn, like, what a girl power move, like, yeah, hype your friend up. But later when we find out that, you know, Emily's such a manipulator, is this just her trying to hoodwink another person into sort of like loving her almost?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's more of a power thing, honestly, for Emily's character to be able to act like this towards everybody. I think it like lures people in.
Yeah, it's just a charmer, you know, Dr. Jekyll kind of act, right?
Totally.
She's just trying to hook her in.
And Stephanie definitely attaches to it very quickly because she's like, wait, me? You think that about me, you know?
Yeah, she feels special.
Yeah, you can tell even though she's like shy about the compliments, she's obsessed with it. She loves it.
She's so intrigued because also they're so different. While they're talking, Emily also makes a comment about how they've tried to sell their like big modern house because Stephanie keeps complimenting it. And Stephanie mentions again how much she loves it. And Emily says, well, maybe you should move in. And once you've seen this movie, watching it back, there's so many little clues that they leave throughout, which I love.
Love a little foreshadowing. We find out Emily has a tattoo on her wrist, flames with a charity symbol. This will come back later. Can I ask you girls, why did this movie act like the charity symbol was like a universally known symbol, like the peace sign or a yin and yang? Like they keep, like he's talking to the police and he's like, she had a charity symbol. What is a charity symbol? I've never heard of it till this movie. What about you guys?
Not a clue.
Thank you. I thought I was dumb.
Just like a peace sign, a smiley face, a star. You know, there's symbols that are like known pretty universally, like a skull and crossbones for poison, things like that. Charity symbol? No, so that's kind of funny. But the charity symbol, like I said, it will come back later. Then Sean, who's Emily's husband, played by Henry Golding, comes home. He and Emily make out in the kitchen, and Stephanie just sips her martini and watches, almost horrified, but she's into it too.
Yeah.
After Sean leaves the room, Emily says they're on the verge of bankruptcy, and she feels like she's drowning because they can't find a nanny. So Stephanie offers to pick Nikki up after school anytime she needs, and Emily says, "You'd do that for me?" And Stephanie responds, "Sure, anything."
We cut back to Stephanie's vlog, and she's making friendship bracelets, and we can see that now she has about 200 followers. Starting small.
Emily takes Stephanie up on her offer and asks her to pick up Nikki after school one day. Stephanie ends up taking him and Miles, who's Stephanie's son, to the park to play. And Emily shows up looking fabulous again. I think she's in another suit. And she makes a comment about how she's a bad mom compared to Stephanie. And the nicest thing she could do for her son is blow her brains out. again, just like another like dark, serious moment from Blake that I personally, like you said, Cam, I just feel like when we get these from her, I just did not buy them all the time. And then when Stephanie looks shocked by Emily saying that, Emily says that she's kidding. And then Stephanie takes a picture of Emily because she's yearbook mom, and Emily gets really upset and threatens her to make her delete it. And then she says, "Want to get out of here? Mommy needs a drink."
At Emily's house, Stephanie makes her hold out her hand and close her eyes. Stephanie has made Emily a friendship bracelet. You can tell Emily actually likes it and says no one does things like this for her, but then she also calls her a nerd. Then she makes a real martini and downs it in one gulp, and Stephanie asks for one.
Then we cut to the girls drinking on the couch, and Stephanie is definitely drunk. Emily says that they should trade confessions, and she says that she had Sean's TA over for a threesome. Stephanie asks if Sean was jealous of the other guy in their threesome, and Emily says, "Did I say it was a him?" Stephanie drunkenly is slurring, and she's like, "Very cool, sis."
It's pretty endearing.
It is.
Part of this movie is that it's like one big gin commercial for Ryan and Blake's gin company that they have started or bought. Aviation, is that what it's called?
I think so.
I think that was a big, like, I think Blake was like, "I'll do the movie, but I need like at least 17 minutes of ad time for my gin company," because the gin martinis that they're throwing back, it's just, I mean, it cracks me up. It fits in the movie though. It totally works. So I'm not even mad at it.
Yeah. Then Stephanie says her confession, and she starts her story, and she says, "A guy named Chris showed up to her dad's funeral, and he was the spitting image of her dad 30 years ago. In the end, he turned out to be her long-lost half-brother." And we see the scene of them like comforting each other over the loss of their dad, and they end up kissing. And it turns out Stephanie is just saying that they only kissed, but we're seeing the full flashback, and we see them fully hook up. Like, they definitely sleep together. And Emily knows right away that Stephanie is lying. And we just see Emily just like realize that Emily's lying by saying they only kissed. And she just goes, "Oh my God, you're a brother fucker." And this like continues.
This is like the craziest. Well, it's not, but I think actually now that I'm thinking about it, this is almost how you can tell it was a book, because this is not the kind of thing that makes it into movies. This is like one of those weird twists that happens in a book. But I also think it's a really good example of this triangulation of desire, like mismatched, sort of like you have these feelings about one person and you sort of project similar or, you know, related feelings onto another person. And I think, you know, I think the energy is like, maybe Stephanie's not a total fucking freak, but she's so emotional about missing her dad that this guy who looks just like her dad, she has this encounter with him. And I think that's another like conceptualization of it. Unfortunate as it may be, obviously, you know, incest, not the greatest thing to do, but it is this sort of taboo relationship that of course society would have a lot to say about. And there's kind of a through line there. So I kind of love that it's in the movie. But it is like, oh my God, this is so fucking crazy. But textually, it's like really rich, I feel like.
Is it bad that this was the moment where I was like, oh, Stephanie's gonna kill her? I was like, she's the culprit.
You're like, there's more to Stephanie than I thought.
I think it's because she lied, and then it seemed so outside of her personality that I was like, okay, there's something here. Like, she is the guilty party.
She's a little freakier than, like, we thought she was, for sure. Yeah. Like, if she'll fuck her brother, who knows what she'll fucking do, right?
Yeah. And my brain the whole time was just trying to figure out the mystery.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the first time we see Stephanie's, like, buttoned up attitude as, like, maybe a front, as opposed to, like, her true personality, you know?
Yeah.
Then we cut to Stephanie back at her house, and Emily calls her to ask for a simple favor, to pick Nikki up from school.
Anna Kendrick gave an interview once where she said anytime the title of something shows up in the something, she like always cringes. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Really?
Yeah. That evening, Stephanie can't get a hold of Emily to pick Nikki up. She isn't answering her calls or texts. The next day, she calls Emily's office and they tell her she's in Miami for a few days for work. So she calls Sean, who is in London, to visit his mom in the hospital. Stephanie tells him what has happened, and he says Emily just does this once she knows Nikki is safe. He's not concerned or surprised.
This whole thing was wild. The next evening, Sean goes to Stephanie's house to get Nikki, and Stephanie says some of the moms at school think they should go to the police since Emily's assistant can't get a hold of her anymore either. The boys are asleep, so they go ahead and call the cops, and the police come over and question Sean about Emily. They ask about Emily's family, and Sean says that she didn't have any. She's an only child, and her parents died when she was a teenager. The police agree to file a missing persons report.
That night, Stephanie and Sean stay up talking after the cops leave, and they talk about Sean's writing and how he doesn't really write anymore because he's been keeping up with Emily. And they also talk about how hard it is to actually get to know Emily as a person. and Sean ends up staying over on Stephanie's pullout couch.
In the morning, Stephanie wakes up to Sean making the boys quote-unquote hangover smoothies, which he says are a great way to get the kids to eat vegetables. We cut to Stephanie's YouTube channel where she's showing everyone how to make that same hangover smoothie for their kids, and now she's got over 600 followers, so things are on the up and up for her little influencer career she has going.
Then Stephanie goes to Emily's office, and she's wearing a blazer and a neck scarf to try to look fancy, and she demands to talk to Dennis, Emily's boss. And she tells him that Emily is missing, and he says, "We have learned in this office that when Emily elects not to tell us something, it's best not to ask."
Instead of leaving, Stephanie sneaks into Emily's office and finds a photo of Emily with "Gotta have faith" written in Sharpie underneath it. And then Dennis has the office security come get Stephanie because he finds her. But Stephanie talks back to Dennis, just like Emily would, and gets the security guards to let her go. But we see that she did take the photo. Emily ends up making missing person flyers with the photo on them and puts them all over town.
I feel like this scene is where we see Stephanie pick up some of the tips from Emily when she goes to the office and she gets into it with Emily's boss and talks just like her. And I love that. You put it in the thing, but I just want to say I really love that we see another shift in her personality. Stephanie is evolving. First, she's this little mumsy, innocent woman. Then she's fucking her brother. Now she's like fighting with people in public. You love to see it.
Mm-hmm. And she's dressing up.
Yeah. But I love the little detail where he like corrects her on how she's wearing the designer scarf. I thought that was a great moment.
Yeah.
We see Stephanie at Emily's house setting the dinner table. Sean is very impressed and says he's never seen anything like it. Then a detective shows up to talk to Sean and Stephanie eavesdrops. The detective says Emily rented a car with cash, which may mean she was having an affair.
Then we cut to Stephanie's vlog, and she's giving another update on the case and tells her viewers about Emily's rental car so they can look out for her. And she like pulled the license plate too and gives them the license plate. Then she gets an email from someone saying they think they saw Emily in Michigan. And the cops use this info to find Emily's car.
This felt... Emily sharing the case on her YouTube channel was one of the only things to me that feels like so unrealistic. And I'm like just trying to get over it. But she seems like such a rule follower that for her to be in regular contact with the cops who must be telling her not to like share the information about the case, and for her to overhear the thing about Emily's rental car and then put it on her YouTube channel just felt like not the same person, you know?
But can I ask, I feel like in a missing persons case, now listen, a murder investigation, some kind of, other type of crime, like violent crime investigation, they don't necessarily want details getting out because that can be how they sort of litmus test like different witnesses and stuff. But wouldn't it be true when you have a missing persons, you do just want the information blasted everywhere because you're just trying to find someone. Like at this point, no crimes have been committed.
That's true.
You want sightings. I still see how you could say it's out of character for her because like to bring in like this scary sort of subject matter into her happy mommy blogger world might still be a little out of character though.
I think where it feels weird for you, Megan, is later on when we learn more information and she's still vlogging about it. That's where it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. We cut to another YouTube video where Stephanie tells her viewers that they found Emily, but not alive. And then we see a rescue team pulling Emily's body from the lake, and Sean is obviously very upset and crying.
Then we're at the funeral. Miles and Nikki get into a fight, and Stephanie and Sean run outside to stop them. Nikki screams, "She's trying to be my new mom," and Sean starts yelling. And Stephanie asks him to take Miles inside so she can talk to Nikki. She tells him that he's a good kid and that they can just sit together and watch the grass grow and be sad, which is kind of a nice moment.
That night, Stephanie puts the kids to bed, and afterwards she and Sean hug, and as they pull away, they start making out, and they end up sleeping together. And this goes back to what you said earlier, Cam. It's the misplaced emotions, the grief that she has towards Emily dying. She's now, seeking comfort in her husband, very similar to the situation with her brother.
I'm just now putting together that every time there's a funeral, Stephanie fucks someone she shouldn't.
Yes.
I didn't even think about it.
But literally, like that's, and you're right. This is like an emotional misplacement of, desires that are being born not out of actual desire, but like emotional distress, perhaps.
I also think that this is a phenomenon. I'm like pulling my true crime podcast knowledge out that I feel like this is where I got this. I think it's a phenomenon sometimes where if somebody passes away, their sibling ends up marrying their spouse. or ends up like being in a relationship with their spouse. And this kind of gives me that a little bit, like as a way to like stay close because they're both grieving the same person and they're going through a similar journey and it like pulls them together.
I mean, it makes sense, even if it's not a phenomenon. I feel like it. I feel like it is. You know.
It makes sense, but I would haunt them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's not cool with me. I would not be good with that.
The next day, Stephanie takes down Emily's naked portrait in the house and puts it in the closet. She also puts on one of Emily's dresses, like one of her really fancy, like, it's not like ball gowns, like an evening dress. But then she gets stuck in it and the doorbell rings and she runs over to the balcony, like upstairs to see who it is. And it's the detective. So she has to go downstairs stuck in this like really fancy dress that's obviously Emily's, not hers. The detective asks if Emily and Sean had issues because the neighbor said that they fought a lot. He also tells her that Emily's autopsy indicated heavy alcohol and heroin use. And Stephanie immediately is like, oh, no, that's not her. I never saw her do that. Then he also asks if she knew that Sean took out a $4 million life insurance policy on Emily before she went out of town.
Yeah, kind of a pointed question, right? Because, you know, everyone thinks, oh, the husband did it for like financial reasons or whatever. And this is making it seem like, oh, damn. And thing that is great about this movie is that you're first like, oh my God, like something's happened to Emily, but like Sean would never, you know, he seems like such a good guy. But then like this insurance policy comes up and we're just living Stephanie's sort of, you know, having to take all this in. And then it's like, fuck, maybe he did do it. The one thing I love about the scene of like she takes the photo down, she goes into Emily's closet. You can just see her like getting a little ahead of herself. Like, oh, I'm sleeping with Sean now. This could be my life. Maybe it almost is my life, but you can tell she's like brought right back to reality and she sort of snaps out of it when the doorbell rings and she realizes like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I wearing her dress? This looks so dumb. Like, this is awful. Great sort of, it's one of those scenes in this movie, which this movie is really good at. I mean, I think Paul Feig is great at this, but it tells you everything you need to know without an ounce of dialogue, right? And you love to see that in a movie.
Totally.
Showing versus telling. Stephanie cuts herself out of the dress and goes through more of Emily and Sean's things. Then she goes to the college where Sean teaches and sees him looking flirty with and hugging a woman.
Stephanie acts weird at dinner with Sean, Nikki, and Miles. We can tell she's getting suspicious of him here, as she should be. Then Nikki tells his dad he saw his mom at school. He says she was right by the fence at recess and told him to say hi to Stephanie. Miles says he thinks he saw her too.
This is the haunting you would be doing, Jen.
Yes.
And then you start to wonder, like, okay, is this a ghost? Because we saw her body. Is this a ghost story? Like, what is this movie? It's, yeah, kind of hard to pin down a genre, especially while you're watching it.
Lots of twists. After dinner, Stephanie freaks out about whether Nikki is right, like whether he actually saw his mom. And she tells Sean that she found the friendship bracelet that she made for Emily, and she can smell her perfume everywhere. She also says the body didn't look quite right, but Sean just like brushes her off and is like, that's because they found her at the bottom of the lake. Like, you're just being paranoid. He also says Stephanie is unlike any woman he's ever met and that he's even started writing again. And then he asks her to move in. And she's like so excited, but then you can tell she like freaks out and she's like, but I don't do threesomes. Just want to get that out in the open. Which is just like her insecurity, I feel like, of not being as cool as Emily, where she's like, I want this life, but like, I need you to know who I am first. Sean actually tells her, though, that him and Emily never had a threesome with his TA and that Emily was just a pathological liar. So she goes ahead and asks him straight up about the insurance policy. And he says they both took out larger insurance policies because Emily heard that Stephanie was living off her husband's life insurance and they felt like they needed to be more responsible for Nikki. And then he says that he loves her and she says it back.
Yeah, I want to ask you guys, do we think Sean's feelings for Stephanie are genuine here? Is this sort of like manipulation on his part, or does he have genuine feelings, or is he just trying to like, you know, keep her close because she's also sort of in on the investigation and he doesn't want anyone, you know, suspecting he did anything wrong? Like, what's going on here?
I feel like I write it as he believes it's genuine, but he's like grieving and this is just sort of a Band-Aid.
That's kind of how I read it too, but it was weird. I don't know.
It's just so fast. But I guess, you know, it's kind of a fast-paced movie. Like, they become best friends in like a matter of 2 weeks. So that's just also maybe one of the themes of the movie. Lesbian in nature, of course. Anyway, we see a montage of Stephanie moving in. Stephanie puts her own art on the walls and takes a bunch of Emily's things out of the closet. But as she's walking back into the closet with her own clothes, she screams because all of Emily's things are neatly back where they belong and where they were before, which it's giving ghost story, right? Crazy little moment of the movie.
Then we cut to Stephanie's vlog. Her setup is in the new house now, and she has over 4,000 followers, so she's still growing. And she talks directly to Emily's ghost and tells her that no one can ever replace her. She says she can just try to love the people that Emily loved. So she feels that she is being haunted now, and she needs to let Emily know that she comes in peace.
Sage the house a bit.
Mm-hmm.
In the car the next day, Nikki hands Stephanie an envelope and says, "My mom asked me to give you this." It's just creepier because of the kids, I think.
Kids are creepy, that's
Very
why.
I see dead people.
Yeah. Yes. Stephanie runs a red light because she's so surprised by Nikki saying this and almost gets in an accident. When they get home, she opens the envelope and it's a picture of Stephanie's family, including her half-brother. And brother fucker is like written in marker across the photo.
Then the phone rings. It's Emily. She compliments Stephanie's blouse and tells her to kiss Sean for me. Stephanie goes to Sean's work to tell him, and he thinks she's losing it. And he's like, "I know someone in the psychology department. I'll make a call. Like, you need to go take a Xanax." But then his TA walks into his office and says, "Hey, handsome," before realizing Stephanie was there. So now, do we trust Sean? Why is he flirting with the TA? Did the threesome with the TA actually happen? Who do we trust? Who do we trust?
Mm-hmm.
The movie does a good job of keeping you on your toes.
This is where I started to turn on Sean. Like before, I totally bought it. And then this happening, and then like thinking about you're right. The movie just does a really good job of like moving the target.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie has a series of flashbacks. She sees her husband glaring at her out the window as she talks to her half-brother Chris. Stephanie is holding Miles when he's a lot younger. And then we see the car crash that killed Chris and her husband. The car smashes into a concrete wall on the side of the road, and like Megan said, it definitely looks intentional now. Although I still don't think I had really caught that yet when I watched it the first time.
I don't think you catch it until what happens right after this. So we get this like quick series of like flashes from Stephanie, and then we get this longer scene that's a flashback. And in the longer scene, Stephanie and her husband are like fighting, and Stephanie is asking for the truth about Miles and Chris. And he asks if Miles is his. What he's alluding to here is like, is Chris Stephanie's brother, Miles' real father? And Stephanie says he's being crazy. And so he walks out the door. And I think this is like at Miles' birthday party or something, because Chris is around with a lot of other people. And Stephanie's husband asks Chris to go for a drive, and he's in like a rage. And so we can assume that this is what happens right before the car accident.
Yeah, it's interesting how this like raises the stakes, because at first you think, well, Stephanie was young and reeling and maybe made a mistake with her half brother who she, didn't even grow up with. So like, it's icky. And then it's sort of escalated to no. Not only did like this one-off thing happen, it seems like they continued an affair. It seems like Stephanie ends up cheating on her husband with her brother. It's at least implied. At least the husband is suspicious of this happening. And not only that, but her kid might be a product of incest, which is not a good thing. Miles seems okay, but like, if that's possible, and then she has her husband perhaps raising her half-brother's incest baby with hers, like, it's way more than just like, yeah, this fucking crazy thing happened when I was out of my mind with grief. And it's like, no. You had a full-blown affair and relationship and maybe even a child with your half-brother. It's stakes are raised. It's like it's crazy. And this movie, it keeps being like, oh, you thought you knew what was happening? No, it's something even crazier is happening. It's really fun. It's a fun watch.
And then her husband killed her brother over it.
Right, and it's not an accident.
So we go from like her husband and brother died in this tragic car accident to like exactly what you said, an affair with the brother. The kid might be the brother's. The husband knew about it. The husband killed the brother. It's very different.
And it's also just heavily implied that there's no way Stephanie doesn't 100% blame this on herself. So not only has she sort of done the wrong thing in engaging in an incest affair, she also is going to take that and say, because I did this, now my husband is dead and my brother is dead too. Like, these two men that are so important to me, she says early in the movie, like, oh, the two most important men in my life just died in one fell swoop. But we also know she's sitting around blaming herself for this, And then you start to like, okay, Stephanie being sort of weird and awkward and like burying her head in the sand about things or being so naive about things almost kind of makes sense because she's carrying around this massive guilt. And it brings out like another element to her character.
Yeah, that's really well said.
Thank you. We cut to Stephanie crying and telling all of this to Emily, who comforts her and then kisses her. They make out. Stephanie pulls away and looks confused and says she's embarrassed, but Emily just smiles and says it's all good. And I love this scene because I think it does just show like how sometimes, especially people who feel really comfortable in a straight identity, can kind of just walk a line and kind of go over into gay land, but not like, it doesn't have to be. I feel like if this is the L word or something, they're fucking on that couch and it's this whole huge thing. But instead, it's this sort of light touch. It's a light touch, and I like that. It leaves room for like interpretation on their sexualities. It's just a good scene, and it's sexy.
Yeah, I like the scene. Anna gave a quote about this scene, and she said, quote, "I remember Blake and I both feeling like neither of us wanted to be the aggressor in the scene. Blake was worried that she would come off as taking advantage of me in that scene because I'm in a very vulnerable place, and I was worried that I would come off like I wanted so much more, and that Blake is just kind of playing, and Emily is very comfortable with the fluid aspects of her sexuality, whereas Stephanie has more of an emotional component to it. So I was worried it would be like really sad. We definitely struggled to find that perfect balance of there's just this moment and they both get caught up in it and it's a little uncomfortable. Yeah, it was a fun day.
I feel like they accomplished that.
Me too. It felt very mutual. But also she's crying. Sorry, I'm just like realizing more and more how much her character, it's like if she's like crying or really, really upset is like when she leans into that.
True. Yeah. Whenever she's sad. Then we're back to the present day. Stephanie tracks down the artist, Diana, who painted Emily's nude portrait. And Diana is played by Linda Cardellini, and she says that being with Emily ruined her career. She says Emily's real name is Claudia, and that Claudia stole her heart. Diana paid for Stephanie's college and paid off all her debt, so she must have been a really successful artist, I assume, at the time, although it doesn't sound like she is anymore. And Stephanie asks if she ever saw Claudia use heroin, but Diana says no way. She also gives Stephanie a t-shirt that Claudia left at her place, and it's from Squaw Lake Bible Camp.
It is like seems to be heavily implied that Diana was set to be like the next great artist, and then she meets Emily Claudia, who knows what her real name is now, and that her sort of all-encompassing gold rush-esque the vortex that is Emily and sucks everyone in sort of threw Diana's career off track. And we kind of get that with Sean as well, because he wrote this one great book, and then for some reason he can't write anymore. He just doesn't do it anymore. Now he's just a teacher, and you just wonder like how many lives has this vixen, this this beautiful woman that you can't quite figure out, this beautiful ghost, as Sean calls her, come through and just like haunted these people into like blowing up their own lives and careers.
That's such an interesting connection that I didn't even notice until you brought it up.
I like this character too. She's like she's funny.
Mm-hmm. So Stephanie drives to Squaw Lake Bible Camp, and she goes for a tour and asks the counselors that are giving her the tour if she can see any old yearbooks. And she finds photos of these two young blonde twin girls, Hope and Faith McClandon.
Stephanie calls a long list of McClandons, pretending to be from the camp. She finds the right family, so she drives to their house and sneaks in as a housekeeper. While entering, she sees that part of the house was burned down.
Then she asks Mrs. McClandon, played by Jean Smart, about her daughter, Faith. Mrs. McClandon says they spent so much money on her rehab. She also says her other daughter, Hope, is a pathological liar. Stephanie shows her the photo from Emily's office, and Mrs. McClandon freaks out and says it's Faith. She asks if Stephanie is a cop and says she's told the cops 1,000 times that she doesn't know anything about the fire.
Stephanie goes to the library nearby to look at all the arson-related news articles. And then we jump to Stephanie's next YouTube video. She says she came to the lake where her best friend drowned, and we see Emily in another scene watching the YouTube video, and she's freaking out. And we can tell she doesn't like that Stephanie found her basically hometown in the lake. Stephanie says she feels closer to Emily than ever, almost like a twin. So this is where I feel like we realize that she knows that Emily is watching.
Yeah, I think she says you gotta have faith.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Emily freak out on the other side, and that rap song comes in, and it's like, this is a pretty epic bit. And then Anna Kendrick does this whole rap, which, can be kind of cringy, kind of endearing, but you can see Stephanie realizes maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. Maybe I can't outsmart this. I thought maybe this was just this woman that I could take advantage of. I could launch my plots. I don't even know if we figured out what her end game goal is yet at this point in the movie, but you start to realize Emily might be regretting that who she chose to sort of try and take advantage of, because Stephanie's a little smarter than maybe we thought at first.
Mm-hmm.
Sean is out at lunch by himself, and Emily shows up. She says she did all of this for Nikki for the insurance money and so she could leave her job. She also gets mad at him for sleeping with Stephanie. She says Stephanie better not fuck up her insurance money or else she's taking Sean down with her. Now, I understand, like, oh, this is like the callback to like, oh, the best thing I could do for Nikki is like blow my brains out. She's realizing like they're house poor, they have these financial issues. Sean doesn't make enough money, and she makes a lot of money, but it's just not enough, I guess, given the financial state of the world at that point. But how does she think she's going to get the insurance money? Or is she just trying to get all the money to Sean? Does she think she's just going to come back and live with them again? Are they just going to fuck off to a different country? Like, I never 100% got, like, how she thought the plan was going to work. And, like, what did she think? Like, Sean's not in on it because he thinks she's dead, so he's off fucking, Stephanie. It felt like maybe a lack of foresight on her part.
I completely agree. I was very confused by this plan. It didn't really make sense to me.
I feel like it would have made more sense if Sean had been somewhat in on it. And then maybe there's like a double cross or something, and Emily like decides to take the money from him or something. But like I had a little like, what did she think was going to happen? Because she has to go away or they're not getting the insurance money. So she can't just like keep hanging out with Sean and Nikki like nothing happened.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I was like, okay, am I just not, is this going over my head how this would work? Because it just didn't, the pieces weren't adding up. When Sean gets home, Stephanie is talking to an insurance agent. Stephanie tells Sean that Emily had a twin, so the corpse could be the twin instead of Emily. The insurance agent says that they're going to investigate it and report their findings to the police. Sean and Stephanie glare at each other, and they definitely know that the other person knows something.
I am wondering why at this point does Stephanie decide to mess this plan up? Is she just in on it and like she's against insurance fraud? Maybe like, is this like her rule following side that's like these two? I think maybe she thinks Sean was in on it all along. So then she feels betrayed because then maybe she thinks, oh, his sleeping with her was like manipulative. So that would make sense as I'm like talking it out loud. But like, yeah, why is she being such a nuisance now?
This was confusing to me. Like for her to immediately jump to, I'm going to talk to the insurance agent at his house and like show him that I know what's going on. It felt like a weird move. Agreed.
Feels like it could be she was in love with Sean or thought she was, and maybe realizing that Emily is pulling some kind of scheme, she just automatically assumes Sean is in on it. Maybe that makes sense.
I also think maybe there's an awareness between Stephanie and Emily where Emily is like, oh, I never anticipated that she was going to like take over my life. Like you were saying, like I thought that Sean and Nikki were maybe just going to move and then I was going to be able to find them or something. And then Stephanie is there messing it up. And then for Stephanie's side to be like, oh, she underestimated me. She didn't think that I could get in the middle of this, but I'm going to fuck this up for her because this is not cool now that I know she's alive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know.
So then we cut to Stephanie's YouTube channel and she has 14,000 followers now. And she's teaching her viewers how to make Emily's gin martini. And I think she makes a comment in the video where she's like, I'm going to take them to Emily's grave at 3 p.m. or something, which is obviously her talking to Emily. And then we see her there at the grave in the funeral, and Emily is there too. And they start a conversation, and Stephanie says, tell me why you killed your father and sister. And Emily says, let's talk about your son's real father. But Stephanie reminds her that she's the one that holds the cards here. And they talk, and Emily admits that she's actually a triplet, Faith, Hope, and Charity, but Charity was stillborn.
We flash back to the night of the fire. We see a flash of their father beating Faith, and then the two girls standing in front of the flames. So this is some kind of revenge they've taken on their abusive parents.
Yeah.
Emily says they had to split up because the cops were looking for the blonde arson twins. So they got their matching tattoos, flames, and a little something for Charity, the world-renowned charity symbol that we all just have memorized what it looks like. Then they split up and set a time to meet again. Faith never showed up when they were supposed to meet, so Emily bought a one-way ticket to New York and started her life over.
I cannot even imagine your twin I would be like, oh, I think my twin died if she never met back up with me when we were supposed to meet up.
Yeah. But I guess it's how they're communicating that Faith is sort of trouble, right? And she's probably off in a drug den somewhere or something like that.
So Emily's trip to Michigan was actually to meet up with Faith, and we see the two of them in a cabin at their old camp. Faith demands $1 million or she's going to tell the cops everything they did, and Emily reluctantly agrees. Then they go swimming in the lake for old time's sake, and Emily pushes Faith under the water and drowns her. Which, by the way, Blake Lively did look like a twin to me in this scene. I was like, whatever they did with her makeup, excellent.
Yeah, I think they gave Faith like kind of sketty makeup, like made her look kind of rough around the edges. It was well done. And again, we have this like intense contact between siblings that have been separated for a long time. One thing I love about this movie is just like these ideas about family and loved ones and love, and the fine line between like loving someone and hating someone, and just I feel like the drowning scene goes back to the incest scene of you're like, holy shit, like what are you doing to your sibling? Like, wait, what are we doing? So kind of interesting, kind of crazy.
I also think it was interesting that it's at least implied here that Emily didn't set out to like fake her death for the insurance money necessarily. I don't think. I think that was something that got hatched when Faith demanded the money or said that she was going to like come back and live with her or something. I forget the exact conversation. And then I think this was sort of like a panic plan for Emily to then kill her sister, put the ring on, and fake it for the insurance money. What did you guys think? Did you think that, or did you think that was always the plan?
I guess we realized that the reason Emily leaves is to go meet up with Faith, who is like threatening
Right.
her. And then, yeah, my takeaway is that this is sort of Emily realizes that Faith's body being a DNA match for her and a physical match for her could be used to take care of all her financial problems. But I guess if everything had gone well and Faith had just been like, "Oh, I just want to say hi, girl," then she would have just gone home. I guess. But could she have hatched the plan before everything started? I don't know. Maybe we should read the book.
I know.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we'd get some more insight.
Yeah.
Then we cut back to the present day, where Emily says her sister killed herself, but Stephanie knows that it's a lie. This is kind of like calling back to when Stephanie was talking about her hooking up with her brother, where the other one is like, I know you're lying to come across more innocent. Emily also tells Stephanie that Sean knew everything the entire time, and it was all his idea. And we could tell Stephanie probably doesn't buy this, but she also doesn't ask any questions. She just says, what happens now? And Emily says since her insurance plan is messed up, she just wants Nikki back. But then that night, Stephanie sneaks onto Sean's work computer and prints something out. So we know that they probably had a longer conversation than what we saw. They like hatched some kind of plan.
The next day, a bunch of detectives show up to Sean's work. Sean drives to Stephanie's house, but she won't let him in. Emily leaves her motel room and throws a wrench up in the air. And can I just say, I always close my eyes at this scene. I cannot stand that wrench. It like sits in the air for like 5 minutes and then smacks her right in the face. It's intense. Mm-hmm. She throws the wrench up in the air so that it comes down to hit her in the face and leaves a nasty bruise. Then we see her walk into the police station with that black eye.
Was it not giving Gone Girl?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
You're right. Well, how did I never put that shit together? You're so right.
Then Stephanie sits at home watching the news reporting on the case, and it says that Sean forced Emily to fake her own death. Sean arrives home to find Emily dressed like a 50s housewife with a martini.
She's just very Stephanie. I love that. Mm-hmm. I love it, and I love her outfit.
Did she cover up her black eye, too, in this scene?
It looks faded, so maybe some. There's like just one little blip left.
Then we cut to Stephanie's vlog, where she says she's stunned by the turn of events, and she asks her viewers to forgive her in advance for what she's about to do.
We cut to Stephanie walking into Sean and Emily's house. She pulls a gun on Sean, and Emily tells her to take it down a notch. Stephanie tells Sean she loved him and accuses him of lying about everything. Emily tells her they can just send him to jail, that they don't need to kill him. And Stephanie says, don't you want revenge for your sister? And Emily says he didn't technically kill her. Stephanie says, then who did? And shoots Sean.
Emily immediately admits that she's the one that killed her sister. And then she walks over to Sean and says, show's over. Get up. Shocking to me as a first-time watcher. Emily says she saw the mics that they planted in the room and knew they were up to something. So she cut the mics before Stephanie came over. Then she pulls a gun on them and tells them she called the cops pretending to be Stephanie and told them they were all meeting at Darren's house, who's another parent at the school. He's one of the ones who made fun of Stephanie at the beginning of the movie. And then we see the cops burst into Darren's house.
This is a funny beat because they're all smoking weed. So they're having like a parent unwind, like smoke from a bong sesh, and then the cops bust in. It's funny.
Yeah. Then Emily shoots Sean, for real this time, and then turns to Stephanie. She admits to killing her father and sister and says she won't hesitate to kill her brother-fucking best friend who slept with her husband. Stephanie says it's too bad she could never come on her vlog because, quote, you admitting to killing your dad and sister and holding me at gunpoint would probably get me 1 million subscribers. Why don't we do that right now? We're live streaming, actually. Did you not know that? And we see that one of the buttons on her sweater is a camera. And then we hear sirens.
Emily and Stephanie run outside. Stephanie tells her to stop running and she can still be Nikki's mom. Emily says, "But you sure as shit won't be," and raises the gun to shoot Stephanie. But right in the nick of time, a car comes out of nowhere and hits Emily. She goes flying up in the air, does like a flip. It's very dramatic. It's Darren. He says, "I saw you on the vlog. You mess with one of the moms, you mess with all of us."
I love this moment.
All of this is wild, by the way, just like back to back to back plot twists, and I loved it.
Yeah, and then after the car crash, Emily gets hit by the car. I feel like we have like a good 20 seconds of Anna Kendrick just riffing and being like, "Sweetie, don't crawl away. I'm worried about your knees. This isn't the way to deal with it." It's funny. I feel like they let Anna Kendrick loose on that.
Yeah. We see the cops take Emily away, and then we jump to 6 months later. Stephanie just hit 1 million subscribers, like she said. She says in addition to recipes, she's also taking on cold cases.
Then we see on-screen text that says, "Stephanie Smothers' highly successful vlog was recently purchased by publishing giant Condé Nast, who plan to turn it into a daily morning show, while her cold case agency has brought over 30 dangerous fugitives to justice. She is currently dating someone from the city," which is cute because I think earlier they say something about her maybe dating someone in the city, and she's like, "Oh no, I couldn't do that." Then it says, "Sean Townsend's second novel, The Oopsie Jar, became a New York Times bestseller, although several critics found the story a bit too far-fetched. He is currently the head of the literature department at UC Berkeley, where he lives with his son Nicky. Emily Nelson is currently serving a 20-year sentence for the murders of her father and sister, as well as the now infamous on-camera shooting of ex-husband Sean Townsend." And then we see Emily playing basketball in the prison yard, and she looks so cool. She's got like braids and she's kind of like done up her uniform, so she kind of has a crop top situation going on, which is like exactly what you would imagine she looks like in prison. And the text says, "She has adjusted to prison life quite nicely."
She's probably got a girlfriend in there. That's my thoughts. And that's what her clothes were giving to me as well. It's like, okay, cool. She's doing okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the end.
That's the end. Yay.
Woohoo.
I'm so glad we watched this one.
This was a really good one. I'm happy you were here to talk about it, Cam.
Loved it. Loved to be here. Great movie. I would recommend anybody watch this that hasn't seen it. It's fun.
Yeah, and thank you so much for getting me to watch it. Now, I'm a huge Iowa Debris fan from Bottoms, The Bear, and Inside Out 2, and she reviewed A Simple Favor on Letterboxd, and I have this like creepy habit where I love to look at her reviews of movies, and she said, "It made 0 sense, but I had fun."
Highly accurate. Highly accurate.
So there's going to be a sequel. I feel like I'm seeing all kinds of information about the sequel on my social media. I don't know if it's just listening to me or if like news is actually coming out about it right now. But it was actually announced back in May 2022, and it's officially been confirmed that Anna Kendrick, Blake Lively, and Henry Golding are all reprising their same roles. And they've also already released like a little logline teaser synopsis of the movie, which I thought was interesting because that feels early. It is projected for a late 2024 or 2025 release. And the sequel includes, quote, "the return of Stephanie and Emily as they head to the beautiful island of Capri, Italy for Emily's extravagant wedding to a rich Italian businessman. Along with the glamorous guests, expect murder and betrayal to RSVP for a wedding with more twists and turns than the road from the Marina Grande to the Capri Town Square."
Love it. I feel like, yeah, we have like a whodunit maybe coming, like a murder mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Interested to see how they get Emily out of jail. I feel like that's not too hard. Like some rich man maybe comes through, gets her a better lawyer, that there's a mistrial or something like that. They can work through that. But it's like, why are they still going to be friends? Because Emily totally held up a gun to Stephanie with like the intention of killing her and just got hit by a car like right, in the nick of time. So how is this friendship? Like, what do you guys have any theories about how this friendship could like re-blossom in the sequel?
I have so many thoughts about this. Like, this is so shocking that there's gonna be a sequel because I feel like they tied everything up. But I don't know. I think the whole entire time we still felt that tension between Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively's characters. So I could imagine them coming back to each other. Like, they've got this weird bond that is just gonna be with them forever, especially now that it's blown up Stephanie's career.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's no way they're both going to just like go to Italy together for Emily's wedding. Like, she's a bridesmaid. I feel like Emily's going to like show up at the wedding uninvited or something.
Yeah. Well, maybe, okay, I could see this movie opening up with scenes, a montage of Stephanie just being so obsessed with Emily that she's going to visit her in prison, trying to figure her out. Why'd you do it? Like, why, why all the violence, like trying to figure it out. And maybe the friendship blossoms there. Or maybe now that Stephanie has her cold case, like she has like a business of like private investigation business, I guess, like trying to crack cold cases. Maybe there's another crime. Maybe the businessman is involved with a crime. And so she goes to investigate. Maybe something like that.
Oh, that would make a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. I can't wait to find out.
I bet you're right. Yeah, we'll have to do a part 2 if the second movie comes out.
Yeah, I'm down.
Definitely. Well, Cam, tell the listeners again where they can find you.
You can find my podcast by just searching What I Will Say wherever you get your podcasts. I'm at What I Will Say on TikTok. I'm at What I Will Say on Instagram. And I'm at What I Will Say on Tumblr. We're talking Taylor Swift. We're talking conspiracy theories. We're talking gay pop culture. If you've ever been like, okay, why do people think Karlie Kloss and Taylor Swift dated? But you don't want to buy in to it and go full like QAnon or KAnon, as sometimes we call it in the fandom. I'm the girl for you. We explore it, but nothing is like the gospel truth. We love our conspiracy theories, but we don't necessarily believe them all. So it's like a safe space for like a gay or curious person to come through. Or if you've ever been like, what went down between, Camila Cabello and Lauren Jareggi in Fifth Harmony. We've got some info on that, right? Like, it's a fun time. So come on through. If any of that sounds fun to you, we'd love to have you.
I love that. And I love that you always caveat things like where you're like, I don't know if I fully buy into this, but this is what people are saying. It's a great podcast. You guys will love it.
The tagline for the show is evidence-based gossip. So we're not blindly believing things. We're getting good tips from industry insiders, and we're just trying to use data, and like we're not just like Taylor Swift and Karlie Kloss are married with a secret baby. Like nobody believes that, right? She's happy with Travis. We're happy for her, right? But we have some fun regardless.
Well, thank you so much. It was so much fun to have you on the podcast, and we really appreciate you.
Yeah, it was great. I would love to come back anytime. If there's a sequel, Pitch Perfect 4 has maybe been announced. Like nothing would make me happier to talk about that with you guys. So I'm happy to come on anytime. And we'll have to get you guys over on What I Will Say at some point.
Would love that. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.